This week on Close Talkers, we're back and we watched Season 8, Episode 1, The Foundation. So, Katy.
Hello, Derek.
Welcome back.
Welcome back to you too. What? It's been a while.
It has. How did you enjoy the episode, The Foundation?
I liked about 2/3 of it. Did you like this episode?
Yeah. I felt like it was like a fun, snappy episode. Like it wasn't it wasn't a great episode, but it was moved along quickly. I would say there was like no really bad storylines.
Kramer doing hayas on children?
Uh-huh.
Okay. I guess they had to wrap up or like talk about the end of last season with Susan dying.
Yeah, I think they needed to address that.
Well, I thought they did when George said he was finally free. And I was happy for third person George. Do you notice he started talking about himself in the third person again? So I really thought that would have been it. I don't know. But I guess he can't win, so...
Nothing good can happen to George.
Right. God hates George.
I guess if this was happening, like, at the time, I wonder if people were wondering, like, are they going to walk back Susan's death, considering it was such a shock?
Right. Wasn't it like one of the top 10 most shocking moments of TV in the 90s?
And open season 8 with just, like, a slow pan down to a gravestone. And you're like, nope.
It's a magnificent stone.
I'm glad that they acknowledged the time. Like we're like, oh, 3 months later, there's a stone today, right? Like,
yeah. Realistically, there's not going to be a stone at the funeral.
Yeah. Did we know that her middle name was Biddle?
I'm not sure. So, how do we podcast? Usually, we throw it back to last week when I asked you if you remember this episode. But that was several months ago.
Do you have the tape?
Let's go. Well, how'd you do?
I think I nailed it. So The Foundation was written by Alec Berg and Jeff Schaefer. It was directed by Andy Ackerman. It aired on September 19th, 1996. Vulture.com ranked it as the 64th best episode. Screen Crush had it at a middling 110th.
Yeah.
And IMDb had it even lower than that at 123.
I land in the middle on that.
So this was the first episode without Larry David being involved. He very famously left between season 7 and 8.
Why?
He's talked about it, and he felt like he was kind of just like done with that, and didn't really have any more stories to tell, and stepped away from it.
Okay.
So it was the first episode where Jerry was the exclusive executive producer. Because of his extra duties, they cut the stand-up.
Yeah, no stand-up.
No stand-up because he was
producing.
What is an executive I thought an executive producer just gave money.
Yeah. And like you run your ideas by them and they're like, yeah, or no.
Yeah.
Yeah, no stand-up at the start or at the end. Is that going to continue or is it just this one?
I think it continues.
Oh.
Somewhat interestingly, Jerry wasn't happy with this episode and actually started doubting himself as an executive producer. Much like Elaine did with the magazine.
Did he consider himself to be a doofus?
I guess so. I guess we're getting ahead of ourselves.
Yeah. Who were the guest stars?
So we mostly had some returning guest stars. There was a brief appearance of Janine Garofalo playing Jeannie, Susan Walters, who played Dolores, Grace Zabriskie, Mrs. Ross, and Warren Frost, Mr. Ross. And then we also had John O'Hurley, who played J. Peterman. The only kind of guest star of note that I thought I would mention was Bruce Davison, who played Wick Thayer. He was in The Practice, Harry and the Hendersons, the TV show, and he had a brief stint on General Hospital.
He had a very generic face. I thought maybe I knew him from something, but...
If you look at his IMDb page, a lot of the episodes, it's like, an episode here, an episode there. He was in the very first X-Men movie as a U.S. senator that was like anti-mutant.
Oh, that must be it.
Yeah.
Well, why don't I read the synopsis of this episode? George is asked to run a foundation in Susan's memory. Elaine takes charge of the Peterman catalog. Jerry comes to a realization about his engagement.
I think Jerry came to the realization about his engagement before this episode.
Is his realization that he doesn't want to be engaged or that he has to pretend he's a widower?
Oh.
Or both? He comes to several realizations. Nobody believes his story that it's mutual, even though it was.
That's true.
Yeah. I don't like the logo. I don't like the checkerboard logo with the blue Seinfeld. I don't like it.
It's very 90s.
Ugh. It's very Dot's Diner, if you know what I mean.
Watch Remastered Reboot on YouTube.
Just one episode so far. Hey, that'll be our next podcast.
Reboot?
Reboot.
Remember how weird it gets in the third season?
The Silver Surfer?
And Enzo goes to the net.
And Bob has long hair? Crazy. So there's no stand-up. It just starts.
Right into it.
It's a magnificent stone.
I felt like there was a lot of scenes that faded out that seemed kind of out of place.
I noticed new camera angles.
Maybe Jerry did make a lot of executive production changes.
Couldn't leave a good thing alone, huh? Like the J. Peterman catalog. He had to go and put an urban sombrero on it. He
couldn't leave well enough alone. He spoke to the Rosses and he got them to start a foundation. Her death takes place in the shadow of new life.
Is that the quote?
That's the first part of the saying. From Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan.
I have not seen it.
I thought we watched them all together.
I have no recollection of this. I mean, spoiler alert, Spock dies? I didn't know that.
I guess maybe we should watch. I was going to ask, well, I won't now, but I was going to ask you of the original series movies to rank them. I guess that's kind of pointless.
Yeah.
You sure we didn't watch them together?
We watched a later... No, we watched a later movie, didn't we? With Picard.
After we watched the entire TNG series.
Yeah. What are those movies called?
Oh, they're the TNG movies, not the original series movies.
I know, but what are they called?
Oh, I think the first one is Generations, and that is the one where you have Kirk gets caught in the whatever it is, and then Picard has to go in and save him, and then they got to team up together to...
Did we see that? I don't know. Jerry doesn't mind being in a cemetery. He says it's just nice to be in a landscaped area.
I can buy that.
Yeah.
I mean, he doesn't really have any skin in this game.
No. He's just out on a nice day for a walk. I do like when he's back at his apartment and Kramer's there. And he's like, oh, I got to go pick up Elaine from the airport. She's been in Mexico for 6 weeks. And Kramer's like, Elaine's been away? We just went to the fireworks.
It was 6 weeks ago.
And then we fade out on Kramer, like, looking confused.
Do you want to talk about the karate?
What's there to talk about? Have you ever done karate?
No, I did taekwondo.
Yeah. Do you have to focus your tatra?
No. But when I was doing it,
Mm-hmm.
it started off and it was, mostly kids. And then like some kids' parents started attending classes too. And then there would just be like,
You're fighting parents?
I don't know if I ever fought the parents. I never really
They
liked
had more
sparring.
tact. Well, I was going to say later on, Kramer's a white belt and he's beating the yellow belt kids, right?
It's true, yeah.
He should probably move up.
I don't think you should advance just because of your skill. It also has to do for your understanding of
Your
the art.
tetra?
Mm-hmm.
Elaine and Jerry are at the coffee shop. She goes, so tell me about your fiance.
My what?
Spill it, Jerome.
Did you remember that Jerry had gotten engaged at the
No.
end of? Oh,
No.
Yeah.
So, I mean, from the synopsis, that reminded me, but I still forgot that it was Janine Garofalo.
Oh.
I mean, we talked about this probably 6 to 8 weeks ago.
It was a while ago. You could go to Mexico in that time.
So he's thrilled because it was truly mutual. All of a sudden, they just go, "I hate you," and they smile, and she gets up and walks away. And he's like so satisfied, and it's like the perfect breakup. And Elaine goes, "You've never felt remorse?" And he goes, "Yeah, I feel bad about that."
Like there was some, I feel like that's kind of like a newer line. Like that wouldn't have happened earlier in Seinfeld. I don't know.
I don't know. I think it's a pretty straightforward joke, but it is. That's the coffee shop banter that I like. I don't like the big, crazy stuff like Kramer throwing a kid to the ground. I like the small jokes in this show.
Do you like Elaine throwing Kramer to the ground and him looking all embarrassed?
No,
the kids are,
not really.
He tied his belt correctly. It's something I always look for whenever I see.
They had a real karate master on set.
Or maybe Michael Richards knows how to tie a belt.
Maybe. So Elaine's in a meeting with other people and Jay Peterman, and they're pitching stuff to him. He goes, "No washcloths, no pears, no apples. Where's my pineapple?"
There are days I have at work where
you just start pushing things off your desk.
No, but I can definitely relate to just screaming into the air. Where's my pineapple?
Just gotta take off to Burma. Are they calling it Burma again?
I think so. There's a civil war happening there now, right?
Still?
I think so.
This is something we could have looked up.
Probably.
Next time I ask someone to do something, probably our child, and she says, "Why me?" I'll say, "Why indeed."
Why indeed. I did like that line.
Anyway, Kramer tries to hype up Elaine because she doesn't think she can run the catalog.
Mm-hmm.
And she buys all his BS.
Is Katra BS?
Oh, it's Katra? Not Tetra?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm sure that matters. She goes, "Well, a pair of pants, a stupid story, a huge markup. I can do it."
That's all you're doing by running a clothing store these days, right? I kind of had that realization when people we knew started to become doctors.
I thought you were going to say managers, but you've gone to specific friends of yours.
Yeah.
So the new camera angles that I was talking about, one of them is when Jerry's phone is ringing and he's fumbling with the door. And then he comes in with the groceries and we're on the counter with the phone.
Yeah.
Like a very Dutch angle. And then later, he's on the phone at his desk. When has he ever been at his desk?
His desk just kind of sits in the background there.
Why would he be on the corded phone except to pull it out of the wall after he talks to his father? Yeah.
He says, "I don't think I'd eat anything that I caught in the pond out front of your condo there."
And my engagement is over. Tell Mom. Click.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to ask you, what do you think of Boss Elaine? Smoking a cigar, feet up on the desk, all cocky.
Very assertive. It's a good look for her.
Mm-hmm. She drooled a lot on that cigar, though.
Mm-hmm. It was a big cigar. It's hard to have a cigar in your mouth and talk a lot.
If you leave it there.
Yeah. She kind of goes into this, like, 1930s gangsters whenever she has a cigar.
Yeah, see? I'm talking here.
Nah, it stinks. Nobody's buying it, and you shouldn't be selling it.
You want to go smoke cigars?
Yeah, let's wrap up this podcast.
So George is roped into being on this board of directors to, like, manage the foundation. But really, they're just dividing, like, they're getting rid of Susan's assets.
Yeah, I mean, the spoiler alert, this is an overarching theme throughout the season.
Okay.
So we will come back to the foundation,
All
and
right.
you will see what they decide to do with their money.
Do they make, like, a butter sculpture or something?
I don't think they make a butter sculpture.
When they start going through, I wrote doll by doll.
Mm-hmm.
This is why I will never sit on a board again. So I've been on a board of directors. And I realize that I'm not a details person. If you start going doll by doll, my brain has left the building. I don't care.
What I think, like, at that point, I would have been like, are there any dolls we don't want to sell? Like, you have to, like, you can't go through it doll by doll, but, like, just be like, anything we don't want to sell them all. Like, you can't, you know.
But they're like, they have to assign a value to each one. You wouldn't be doing your due diligence.
They already had the estimated value. Just go with that.
I bet the one that looks like George's mom is worth a lot.
Probably.
I bet the one that is exactly like one that I had, the Anne of Green Gables doll, is worth a lot. It's not.
No, you checked?
I'm sure it isn't.
Did you go on eBay after that episode and check?
I did look for it on eBay. I don't think I found any.
I got a doll and toy guy. I'll bring him in, see what he thinks it's worth.
I didn't really write anything else. This is pretty, for me anyway. I was just watching everything to do with Kramer and the Karate Kids. So I did write 6 kids and then crossed it out 5 kids and Kramer in a station wagon.
There were those kids, and I think they had the backward-facing seats, which I think we've talked about previously. Like the third row.
Did they have seats, or were they just in the trunk?
Oh, I don't know. They were looking backwards.
Yeah. I don't remember. Did you have a car with backwards-facing seats?
No, we had a station wagon, and
Is this the one that got milk in it? And
yeah.
Okay.
The one where milk seeped into the seat upholstery and just
rotted.
But when we would go on road trips, we would lay down the seats. So there would be 2 seats in the front, and then it would just be flat in the back. And we would lay down in, like, sleeping bags.
Sweet.
We can talk about George's desire and his equating a giant block of cheese with some type of bachelor paradise. We can talk about Jerry and him trying to, like, come up with the perfect story for, you know, having had a fiance and what he can tell women so that they...
So do you think he's going to tell or, you know, is planning to tell other women that his fiance died?
Well,
because they're...
Spoiler alert. I've seen all of these episodes before.
No, but as someone who hasn't, he shouldn't do that because there are follow-up questions, right? If someone asks, who was your fiance? Then you have to make up a person who doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
Or, you know, you're building a house of cards on this lie. For sympathy?
Yeah. Well, I mean, ultimately for sex, but
yeah.
The sympathy leads to sex.
Sure. I don't get Mulva's comment like, you know, I thought you'd matured. I thought there was growth here. Like, I don't understand women who expect men to change at any point in their lives.
I did really like Jerry's response when she said, you know, I thought there was growth here. Well, I can't argue with that. But the fact remains, I really, really liked his pedantry with it was a mutual breakup.
Mm-hmm. And then there's a tag on the subway. These men have been laid off and their lives have been ruined because they bought urban sombreros and fell asleep.
Did you, did you mind the urban sombrero? I think it looked okay.
Well, it's just big dumb hat before its time. Mm-hmm. Women wear that all the time now.
Yeah.
Prescient. I'm going to start calling big dumb hat the urban sombrero.
I didn't totally understand, like, how the first guy lost his job.
Well, he said he used to close his door and nap. And then he had the urban sombrero on and he just like fully fell asleep with the door open and people saw him napping at work.
It seems like it's on him. Doesn't seem like it's the hat's fault.
I don't know. It's heavy. You tilt your head down.
How heavy? I don't know if I've ever worn a sombrero.
I think one was put on your head when we were in Mexico and a photo was taken and we're like, please don't share these photos.
That was probably a good idea.
Yeah.
There are two really cute girls sitting at the counter eating grilled cheese.
So Jerry needs George for what in this scenario?
A wingman.
Is he wingmanning George or is George wingmanning him? Who's going to have the dead fiance?
George has a dead fiance, Katy.
So Jerry's not planning to use that for himself.
I mean, yeah, Jerry's not planning to.
Okay. Okay. This episode was dedicated to Marjorie Gross, Canadian comedian, Seinfeld writer. She died of ovarian cancer. She's cousin of Spencer Rice, which we've brought up on the show before, of Kenny versus Penny. So before she died, she wrote a long article in the New Yorker, and she said she wanted to hold out until November so she couldn't be reincarnated as Madonna's baby.
Fair.
Do you have anything else?
Nope.
So next week we have The Soulmate.
We have The Soulmate.
What's it about?
Kramer falls for Jerry's girl, thinking that she is his soulmate.
Well, bye. Thanks for coming back. If you're hearing this, thanks for listening.
Yep.
Question mark?
Bye-bye. Believe it or not, this is our podcast. Please subscribe at the end. If you subscribed, we would be happy. Please subscribe to us. Believe it or not, it's our podcast.
Is that a Seinfeld reference?